194 days since the climax, the escalation of the code red that ended Richard's life. And I think it's a little bit longer than that. I really do. I think it, add a few days onto that. We're re-looking at the whole timeline now. But the retaliation against Richard, our son, active duty soldier, distinguished honor graduate, the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier, began much, much earlier when and we know in Qatar things were very bad. He said things were very bad, so much so that he did not want to aspire anymore. Remember, Richard was the distinguished honor graduate for his cycle and basic training, and also in advanced individual training, and had college credits. Was pursuing his criminal justice, or I would say law enforcement career. That's what he wanted to do. That's why he was inquiring with the CID right there at Fort Bliss. We have the paperwork where he inquires, how do I become a criminal investigative division soldier, right? A investigator, a special agent. How do I do that? Um, so Marlon Soto absolutely knew about Richard, and it's very, very clear that Richard made complaints because in Qatar, when he was deployed to Qatar, he had changed his mind completely. He did not want to stay in the military. He really, Rob told him, just keep your head down and get your time over with, and then you can get out. It was that bad. He did not even want to be an NCO. He made E4 very quickly with waivers. So, and I asked him, oh, you're going to get E5 soon then? And he goes, nope, I don't want it. I don't want it at all. I just want to get out. He didn't want to go green to gold like he had talked about with my dad. No, his whole attitude had changed 180 degrees. So, this was a failure in leadership. Absolutely a failure in leadership in so many ways. Here you have a young, aspiring, absolutely clean record in so many ways, and they failed him. This is a failure of leadership. This is who they want to join the military. Maybe not. Maybe not, because everything they do is opposite of their SOPs, of their lip service, of their advertising. Everything is opposite. They have a crime problem. They have a harassment problem. They have a sexual assault problem. They have a sexual harassment problem. They have a child porn problem. They have a weapon smuggling problem. They have a PTSD problem. They have a suicide problem. They have, what do you, okay, they have a flush with weapons in the barracks problem. They have an esprit de corps problem. This is a failure of leadership. These 44 four-star generals and admirals need to be fired. And they allowed Leilani Hart, with her sex cult mind, her absolutely sex cult mind and criminal mind. She is a convicted criminal. She has a criminal mind. She's has a long criminal history. Let me go on to Facebook to make sure that I'm on because this is so important. And they allowed Leilani cult mind. Yep. A sex cult mind, absolutely, because there's a prostitution problem. There is a child porn problem. There is a child sex trafficking problem. And, this is a failure of leadership. When somebody um, with the criminal history and uh, sex cult problem has control over the Fort Bliss CID, has control over Park University on Fort Bliss, has control over the DES, the Thomas Kane, the chief of security of Fort Bliss. And what do I mean by this? Okay. What do I mean by this? I mean Leilani Hart having an affair with Special Agent Tavita Nusa in the CID and tampering with files, tampering with Richard's file, um, messing with CCTV footage, which that would include Thomas Kane because he knows all the CCTV footage. That's his job. And she has a very close relationship with him also. Also, the cover-up of deleted CCTV footage or avoidance of certain areas. There's just a lot of questions there, a lot of information coming at us about the collusion and the conspiracy of the CID with dirty agent Marlon Soto, okay? And don't forget that dirty agent Tavita Nusa lost his badge, rightfully so. He lost his badge. He was suspended. He lost his badge, and he was separated from the Army. And now we have dirty agent Marlon Soto, and we're getting some words. We're checking on him too. What has happened to him because it's not our words that he's a dirty agent. Okay, I did not say that or start that. I said it, but I didn't start that. We were told that from law enforcement that he was a dirty agent. And I think that the MP, Anthony Swafford, who was hypnotized by the guard mount announcements that I'm sure came from dirty agent Marlon Soto, that smeared Richard, this campaign to groundlessly smear a missing soldier, a murdered soldier, a whistleblower at that, a retaliated whistleblower, when they knew that the retaliation that was against him was unjust because July 9th, 2020, Richard got very, very good news from downtown El Paso, from the justice system down there, that, it was a setup. The staged DUI, the setup DUI in a parking lot where no video was taken, and Richard maintained his innocence and refusal to go along with it, with what they were trying to do to him. That was a very good day because downtown, the justice system also maintained that Richard was innocent and there was no proof otherwise. Nothing. There were so many questions. Even the cop was a canine cop and never ever turned on any camera. So, and there was no evidence at all of any kind of six-pack or open container or anything like that. So, on July 9th, 2020, he got very good news, and he won his stance that he maintained that he was innocent. So that's Very, very good there. Um, so I wanted to uh, write the I went into that and I lost my train of thought from the very beginning of it because I have to repeat so much of this around all the breaking news so people will understand this case that Richard was a whistleblower, that he was retaliated against using the military tools, the legal system there. They even intimidated him by saying if you go court martial, you could get 6 years in prison for something that was still an active case that ended up being dismissed. And they told us this in November, knowing full well that on July 9th, before Richard was murdered in 2020, that in November when we were there, they still tried to use that staged DUI to give an excuse to be a foundation because that's all they had of all the retaliation, the waterless waterboarding that they had levied against him as a whistleblower. To my husband, he says, yeah, I think they were trying to suicide him. They were trying to make his life so miserable that that he would suicide. And but he didn't. He stood firm. He won the case. He That must have been a very very happy day for him. And yet, it wasn't a happy day for the command. And I'm talking about Major General Clem Coward. It wasn't a happy day for him at all. And what Leilani Hart has uh, suggested or announced in her view of what happened to Richard is that he was code redded. He was code redded, murdered, and good food for the coyotes in the desert. That was another little snippet, not from her, but from others. Can you imagine us going through something like this? And All Saints Day coming up. The pain and the suffering, I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you. It's unimaginable. And just wait, it has not ended there. There is more to this. Um, there's more to this. So I'm a little bit early today, which is a good thing. But I wanted to explain a little bit about my announcement yesterday. That just shakes me up saying what I just said. That just, um, yeah. And they could undo, see, this is the thing. They can level with us and give us our son's remains. And, but for them to level with us and give us our son's remains would expose something so horrible. They rather commit this crime of not answering open records and not being transparent than to tell us the truth about what happened to our son. Okay? That's what's been going on. It's just so horrible. And when it involves a major general, a two-star general, and also a platoon leader, um, and also, we believe, even more, then and is connected to a very serious case, uh, they rather commit the crime of covering up and taking their chances than exposing what happened to Richard. That's what's going on here. So really early on in this, very early on, I should get a date. Very very early on, a lady came on named Corinne Adeline. And Corinne Adeline, had told us that she wanted to help. She was there to help. She was so sorry um, uh, about everything going on. And I think she offered card reading. There's a lot of card reading or witches spells that they wanted to, they were saying it was white witches and stuff like that. So there is this like occult thing going on too in all of this. That's why I say this is a sexual cult. Um, there's so much evidence of this sexual cult, and early on it was these witches, and they can do spells and whatever, and they can do the card readings, and I don't want to include um, Crabby Empath in this because Crabby Empath never contacted me or anything. She just did her own thing and posted it, and then someone sent that and said, "Hey, there was a card reading about your son," and that's how that happened. But Corinne Adeline, contacted us and offered, those. We turned her down on that, but we thanked her, and we're always very gracious to her. And as this, as the days went by, and so many other facets came into play, uh, and clearly we were made to be the investigators in our son's case. And clearly there was a smear campaign on Richard that was so insane that it put up so many red flags in our family that we had to decide on what we were going to do, because that meant that this case was definitely a murder case, that they had definitely murdered Richard, because nobody on the outside of Richard's knowing Richard would understand this. The public would not really understand it, but those that know Richard and our family, we thought, look, that is so insane that they are covering up something. And it was very clear for us. So, and then the smear campaigns that pointed to people that were supposed to be helping us. Um, so we investigated, and we kept going on the live streams, and we just decided, okay, um, uh, we organized ourselves a little bit, right? So that we could maintain. And also, with my dad getting very, very sick, we really had to organize ourselves so that we could get through and do everything that we needed to do while we were helping my dad, um, really caring for my dad, and trying to have the energy to get through everything. So, and just praying a lot and knowing that, the answers that we were getting back were not, um, well, they were reinforcing and corroborating what we were thinking, that Richard was um, violently murdered, and they had to cover it up. I mean, because of the canine thing. I mean, I can mention so many different things that happened along the way that just confirmed that they were covering up so much, like the stage task force find Richard Halliday without an op board. I mean, how much evidence do you want? And today in church, um, I just thought of the comparison just now. The reading was Jesus saying, you're looking for miracles, you're looking for proof of who I am, right? But blessed is the person that believes and doesn't need these miracles, right? But it's like you have enough, and really the point was there are miracles that are in the Bible about what Jesus did, but there's like 7 miracles in the reading that we did today, in the book that we did today, and that's enough there. And it says there's many, many, many more, but that's enough, right? That's enough. If you can't believe with these seven, then whatever, you don't need to know about all of them, right? And that's so you can really compare that kind of thinking to Richard's. There's so many red flags. There's so much evidence. There's so much circumstantial evidence. I can tell you mounds and mounds and mounds. Um, but there is enough with just five uh, to get any judge to say today, to really, with all what we have, any judge, if we have a case right now and we put forth our evidence, would declare Richard deceased. I mean, very clear, right? So, this is uh, this is where we're at today. It is, the evidence is overwhelming that Richard has been murdered. And so, the more and more evidence that we were gathering, it made people feel uncomfortable. And one of those people that started feeling uncomfortable was Corinne Adeline. And she started acting strange, and she started acting as an antagonist. And I got a phone call from just a person that doesn't know our family, but knew that Richard was the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier, and wanted to spread the information out for us. And she called and she said, what is going on? You're hiding Richard. And I'm like, what? I'm not hiding Richard. And she proceeded to say that Corinne Adeline had contacted her and said that this is all just staged, and that we were hiding our son. And and of course that's not true. That's not true at all. But the point of that is that there was a concerted effort for people that really didn't know us, or maybe people that did know us, and to be contacted behind the scenes. I know our children, and that were bullied, and the harassment started. And it really did start, and going behind the scenes, contacting people to mislead them, to get them to stop helping us, and not following the live streams, sharing the live streams, just to sabotage the search and the investigation into our son. And so, her name was, I didn't bring up her name. She came to us, and this is what happened. And so she became suspect. And what do I mean by that? It was like, well, who is this person? That is she mad that we didn't do the card reading? I wasn't rude to her about that. So why is she trying to work against finding Richard behind the scenes, behind our back? Why would she want to do something like that? This is a missing soldier, right? This is my son. So we looked into her, and her name is Corinne Adeline West. And when our key witness, the beginning of, January of 2022, called us and let us know that he had submitted in his official office a complaint to the CID, to the FBI, to the chain of command, and many others everywhere, okay? Everywhere, that Leilani Hart and Tavita Nusa tampered with our son's file. That Tavita Nusa, being a special agent in the CID there at Fort Bliss, gave unauthorized access to Leilani Hart to files, and they were tampering with it. and they were messing with the video and things like this. And there was also a report in there about bodily harm of our son. Okay, so this happened the beginning of 2022. And so Leilani Hart's name, and of course Tavita Noosa's name, came up, and a lot of interesting things happened during that time too. But Dallas Hart's name came up as the platoon leader of Richard, and that was kind of a relief for us because the Army would not let Richard's unit really meet with us, right? At the very beginning, when we were not in El Paso, they said they had to talk to us, and they called us briefly. And but once we got there was no sign of Michael Ruggiero, right? Richard's first sergeant, to come and meet us. There was no sign of the whole unit coming to meet us. And everything was very, very controlled. There was no sign of David Park. There was no sign of Captain Yoshida, Captain Park or Captain Yoshida. There was no sign of Richard's platoon leader. And no sign of First Lieutenant Brown, which Richard had his phone number on his paperwork. But, so we were very relieved to know, oh, okay, Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader. And we got that corroborated. But then we were being told and misled that Dallas Hart was not Richard's platoon leader. And so we're like, well, which is it? And, the Army never responded, still to this day. So that's kind of strange that they, Dallas Hart is first lieutenant, perfect for platoon leader. We have evidence and witnesses saying, yep, that was Richard's platoon leader. And somehow, some way, his face is on Richard's Interpol picture. Why is that? That's kind of strange. So there is this connection. And we were thinking, okay, Leilani Hart is having an affair with a CID special agent that lost his badge. Something no good is happening. And she's the mother of Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart. So they're just, this is just part of the cover up. What happened to Richard? So, of course, we're going to look into that. Well, looking into that came the name Deborah Sarah West. And we're like, Deborah Sarah West, because the bullying and the harassment started, okay? And we were getting daily on our hotline number the most vile and vulgar messages, right? By different numbers, and they were trying to intimidate, scare us, whatever. This is my son. What is my option? Okay, go ahead, murder my son. I'm going to walk away. Is that my option? Or to keep looking and trying to find out what happened to him, right? And knowing full well that he's murdered, of course, my husband and I are going to be like, well, who murdered him? What happened? Right? And of course, being a military family, we're going to be asking that. And so Deborah Sarah West was, and we have the information, right? We have it on record that Deborah Sarah West was giving flight lessons to Dallas Hart. Okay. So they know each other. They're giving flight lessons. So Deborah Sarah West is a pilot. Okay. But then we put it together that Corinne Adeline West is Deborah Sarah West's mother. So this person behind the scenes trying to sabotage our son's investigation, obstructing justice, her daughter is teaching Dallas Hart how to fly. And then they backpedaled. They were like, no, Deborah doesn't know Dallas, never knew Dallas, right? Didn't teach him how to fly. what are you talking about? I have information that he, on even on his post that he was getting ready to do his solo, Um, so uh, that was so crazy, and obvious that they were trying to distance themselves from Dallas, that they were trying to still sabotage the investigation into our son. They didn't want to come clean, and let us know more information. And what happened then is the stealing. Well, they did that way before, but they stole Richard's identity, and they stole our family's identity, and they stole our identity of investigating into Richard, find Richard Halliday, the real find Richard Halliday, and all of that. We had a hard time making the TikTok. Anyway, um, God's in control of all of this. And they, became very disrespectful with what they were saying. Instead of helpful, they were sabotaging and trying to control a narrative. And so what that did is put up even more red flags. Okay, so Richard really was murdered. Richard was really murdered. If these people are so vile and vulgar and will give this case so much attention, I mean, they're, a lot of attention, it's like they're daily paying attention and forming a group. I wonder if they gather and make popcorn to watch and form a group on how they can be vile and vulgar and sabotage the investigation to Richard. I don't know. You have to ask them. But what I'm saying is that there is a connection here, and of course, then the El Paso matters decided to retaliate against our key witness. Okay, the key witness that a year before had submitted the CID and the FBI complaint with the chain of command with others. A lot of others, and decided, okay, we're going to do a hit job on the credibility, really a political, a hit job on the credibility of our key witness that connects Lonnie Hart, Dallas Hart, Deborah Sarah West, Corinne Adeline West, and more, James Hart, all these, people. And, we're going to launch through KTEP, through El Paso Matters, this political hit job to obstruct justice, to interfere in Richard Halliday's case. And, so we were, we have Team Find Richard Halliday, and they send us things. We miss some things, of course, but this in KTEP and El Paso Matters, later published in El Paso Matters, we did not miss. Okay, so Aaron Montes, he was a reporter, but Angela Kucherga was the publisher. And so I contacted Aaron Montes and to say, look, do you understand you need to take Find Richard Halliday's comments on this, because you're interfering, which is obstructing justice, denying us due process. You're going to hurt our case, our investigation to find our son, the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier. And Angela Kucherga responded, and I think it was like January 30th, 31st of 2023. I apprised her of that in a phone conversation. She didn't want to hear it. She didn't care. Okay? There was no oh my goodness, oh, I'm so, we need to add um, Leilani Hart's connection with your son's case, Dallas Hart's connection with your son's case. Uh, you know, there was none of that. And so that put red flags up. There was other things that happened during that meeting that put red flags up. And I want to tell you that our team, we went through that article with a fine tooth comb. We separated it all out. There was no evidence for it. It is a really lousy article. And then what that did is it put the focus on Leilani Hart, because now Leilani Hart was the person obstructing our investigation forward to find out what happened to Richard. Okay, that's why the focus went on Leilani Hart, and we really started, um, you know, getting a background of who she is, and of course now you have found out that she has a huge um, criminal history. And let me see if I can bring that up, because I think it's really, really important. Let's see. I should have brought that up, but I didn't prepare. This is Sunday. Okay, yeah, here it is. Yeah. Okay, so Leilani Hart's criminal history. So she was arrested for false reporting to law enforcement authorities. This is in Hawaii, case number 1P197001867. She has multiple accusations of harassment. Multiple. I mean, she just causes chaos wherever she goes. Case number 1SS0710005027, 1SS0510001519, and 1SS0510001342. Those are three examples. There's more. Then a domestic abuse case number 1DA9800055015. Is it 5 zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah. Criminal case filed for violating a restraining order, case number 1P1080001527. In addition, she, and I don't know if I put this case number out. Maybe I shouldn't put this one out because this is on Fort Bliss, and there's even assault on Fort Bliss. There's 2 assaults here that I have on Fort Bliss. So the point is, and this is not including her failure to report the sexual assault on her friend's 7-year-old in her master bedroom by multiple members of her family, because she has some kind of immigration status problem that she admits to in that criminal complaint affidavit that she had notarized. That's part of our son's case. Okay, it's part of our son's case. And so we were looking at her criminal history, and it's like, okay, Angela Kucherga is an award-winning journalist, right? Right? And she teaches at UTEP, and she's KTEP, and then she also works for El Paso Matters. Does she not do a simple background check? Especially when the family of the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier says, look, this is interfering in our son's case. She's up to no good. She's up to no good. And She's the mother of our son's platoon leader. Um, that is also questionable. Also questionable. So, what's going on here? And that put up red flags because, of course, she knew. Of course, she runs to see if her source is credible because that would make her liable. KTEP is like PBS, right? They're publicly funded. So they have to give us open records by law. They have to give us open records because we fund them, right? They work for us. And so, of course, she would do a background check. Of course, she would see if her source is credible or not before she tries to ruin someone's life, right? By uh, making a professional person like a criminal. I mean, charging our key witness, kind of suggesting he was trying to murder Leilani Hart in this article. Uh, you know, uh, I mean, that's so criminal. So why would Angela Kachurga participate in something so criminal as to intimidate a key witness, to retaliate against a key witness, to destroy an officer of the court, to or attempt to, and to obstruct justice, to deny, to use an unreliable source to obstruct justice in the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldiers case? Why would she do that? Because that's risking her career, everything. So that put up red flags. So we looked through, and so it's Leilani Hart, of course, David Poche, of course, Angela Kachurga, and, you know, a name, addresses come up, and names come up. The addresses were 3905 Bliss Avenue, 3705 Bliss Avenue. So this is like a progression, of red flags. Why would they risk something like that? Why would they be so criminal and be on the phone with us and not even care about Richard? Right? Not even care. Not even do a follow up story. Not even add that Leilani Hart has a long criminal history of lying to law enforcement. She was even arrested, and the judge, part of her sentencing was to get mentally evaluated because something wasn't clicking up there. Why didn't Angela Kachurga have a follow up and even do that in the first article? So this is really criminal, super criminal, um, and heartbreaking. I mean, can you imagine the media? You're talking to the media, they don't even care. And this is the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier that, with all the evidence we have, was also chopped up like Vanessa. Was also retaliated like Vanessa. I can't even tell you the tears that I've shed over Kachurga's phone call. Um, the 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 absolute I the distress, because if the media is not going to care and they're the PBS, they're supposed to be neutral, and they don't care, and they're right there in El Paso, and here you have an award-winning journalist that doesn't care about the first Vanessa Guillen soldier that is a whistleblower, that was chopped up, that, dismembered bodies. This is the information we have that she could help get validated or denied. She could put pressure on Fort Bliss by her media stands, and she's not doing it. She didn't care. She rather obstruct that. She rather kick Vanessa Guillen's memory back into that hole and put more concrete on it. I mean, that's the distress. It gives you nightmares. and absolutely criminal on so many fronts, and has done way more damage mentally to us as Team Find Richard Halliday than any of those vile and vulgar messages for months. For months of being bullied was nothing, and these were vile and vulgar, was nothing compared to what Angela Kucherga did to us. Okay? Because what she was doing to us, she was doing to Fort Bliss, to every service member on Fort Bliss, to that active duty soldier that has requested a congressional. She's done it to him. She's made his life harder. She's made our life harder. She's made every service member on Fort Bliss harder. She's made that overflow going into El Paso. She's made El Paso more miserable when it comes to the justice system, right? She's made life more miserable in Mexico. God bless you if you speak Mexican. I'm going, or Spanish. I'm going to try to write this up and translate it into Spanish because this has overflowed into the likes of her and her reporting. They have such a high murder rate in Juarez, and most of those being murdered are women. You know, they're women. And then, of course, all the child abuse and everything. But this is the failure of our media that we support with our tax money. That has done way more damage than vile and vulgar messages from the likes of like Amber Chase, right? Whatever, get a life. So, and of course we have reports that she works in the VA with James Hart. So, once you know the connections, you're like, oh, okay. Red flags going up. But what Angela Kucherga did is huge. And so, of course, we looked into all of this and was like, okay, is Corinne attached to Angela Kucherga, attached to Leilani Hart, attached to Dallas Hart through Deborah Sarah West, through, this plane, and the people that own this jet plane, this Cessna, and not a prosecutor, a defense attorney's name came up. The name came up. People related to that name came up. Over and over again, the Valenzuela name came up and led us to Felix Valenzuela. Okay? The defense attorney, Felix Valenzuela. So, then there's this connection with Felix Valenzuela that we would like to know, was he representing Leilani Hart? Was he representing other people that are attached to Richard's case? Because there's a lot of legal stuff going on here. And we have a dirty CID agent, right? We have dirty Marlon Soto. Do we have a dirty defense attorney? And I'm sorry, Felix Valenzuela, if I say that. I'm transparent. Your name has come up amongst these people. Maybe you're just doing your job. I don't know. And, he's connected to another big case, another very big case. So, that needs to be clarified. And we need to get answers for that. Because your name has come up with all these other names. And, we had a dirty agent at the CID in charge of our son's case who put us in charge of investigating our son's case. And so we are not professional investigators. So I hope we're doing this right. I'm telling Angela Kucherga, I'm telling Leilani Hart, there is a connection with Valenzuela to 3905, well, to really 3705 Bliss Avenue and this 3905 Bliss Avenue. So many people connected to these two addresses, 3905 Bliss Avenue, 3705 Bliss Avenue. And if you out there have information, please send it to us. Okay? Um, if you're calling, I don't answer anymore to first rings. And I check the number. I get the number checked if you're calling me. And because of the threats, because of the retaliation, the harassment that we have received. So go ahead. Do not give up. Call 941-677-0060 and keep calling. Make sure you call from a real phone number. Okay? And, or, I don't know how else you're going to find a way to get information. You can go to the police if you know somebody that is not a dirty cop, that's not a dirty CID agent. I don't know how you're going to get that information to us anymore. I really don't. It's that they have tampered with this case. They have sabotaged this case. So maybe, we can all put our heads together and find out what is a safe way that people can be anonymous and still give us information, because things happened to Richard at 3905 Bliss Avenue, 3705 Bliss Avenue. That's connected to our son's case. And that's why, So then, of course, we know from Asia Graham's, I'm trying to go through my notes so quickly. We know from Asia Graham's case, this is the soldier that was raped on Fort Bliss, going through a really hard time because she was being retaliated for wanting to report the rape. Her rapist was moved 2 doors down from her in the barracks. That's co-ed, which is insane failure of leadership, right? Because whose bright idea was it to make the barracks co-ed when it's overwhelmingly males, right? You have the smallest ratio is 9-1, okay? It could be 15 males to 1, 20 males to 1, sometimes 120 to 1, right? Sometimes in the Navy, it's even more than that. So women need to be protected. They need to have their own space, right? They don't need to live in fear that they are going to be raped and sexual assault in the place where they live. That's the least our leaders could do for them, right? These failed leaders, and they're absolutely failed leaders, and they're taking us to war, and they're failed leaders that are taking us to war, and guess what that means? Failure. That's all we've had is failure. And that means dead soldiers, that means dead service members, that means damaged property and millions and billions and trillions of dollars unaccounted for. So it is really concerning, very concerning. But we know through the Asia Graham's case that Judge Robert Lee Shook, I believe he's a colonel, and so we sent information into the JAG, and you wouldn't believe the response from that. That shook them up a little bit. Why? They should give us the probable cause affidavit for searching our house. They should give us a probable cause for Richard, right? But see, Richard, when we finally went to got institutional support to do it, the federal criminal database, he's never been on there. And that's corroborated by the yellow Interpol notice. Because if Richard was ever on the federal criminal database, he would be a red Interpol, not a yellow Interpol. And so, Richard maintained his innocence, and he was innocent. He had never been on the federal criminal um, database. So he was never a deserter. So what does that mean? That the information that we were given, that he was designated died while missing, deceased, homicide, things like that, that we still don't have answers to, which we would like answers to. Maybe Felix Valenzuela can give it to us. um, yeah, maybe Judge Robert shook because we requested that from the judge, and you know, um, he rather break the law, break regulations, than tell us the truth. See, and so through this whole investigation around the West and Kachurga and the Hearts and Valenzuela and other names too, the name Judge Penny Hamilton came up. So she is, you have the military jurisdiction and then you have the civilian jurisdiction. And, so we're looking into that, and we would like answers from her to validate, um, you know, did she rule over cases on the civilian sector that was in regards to our son's case, Richard Halliday. Okay, that's very, very important. So, yeah, so that's and those are the really, really important to us open records and where we're focusing, because if there is a gag order, if there is a move to seal the case, that tells us a lot too, right? That tells us a lot. And, we need answers. Uh, why they did that and why they didn't even tell us that they are moving to seal our son's case. Um, why they issued a gag order on so many and things like that. Yeah, it's there's just so and why we couldn't get the phone information and the cloud information, and why there was this obstruction of justice on so many fronts in our son's case. So that is the breaking news, the rundown of how I wanted to explain what we have been through to get here and all of the work behind the scenes, um, while we are trying to maintain, and maybe even grow a bit, um, the 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 population knowing what's going on in this case. We need to get as many people knowing what's going on in this case because of really what Kachurga was allowed to do, right? What she did, that is so damaging, not only in our son's case, but to every service member and for the well being of Fort Bliss, for El Paso, and into the surrounding areas, even going into Mexico, because she's very popular in Mexico. And so this needs to be shouted out. Really, this was vicious. This was malicious, and it was intentional. Okay, so this is intentionally being vicious and malicious in our son's case, to Fort Bliss, to El Paso, to the surrounding areas, and even into Mexico. And I just came and tell you um, how heartbreaking that is. Yeah. There has to be a connection. She has to. Is she being blackmailed? Is she? Does she have skin in the game in the criminal world? I don't know. Because Leilani Hart's just for us to try to look at her history, it takes e- effort, right? But she has tools. This is her job. She has connections. And, she could call up Fort Bliss and say, hey, does was Leilani Hart arrested on Fort Bliss? And they would answer her. All right. It took hard work to get that information for us. And she has a long criminal history. And she has a CID and an FBI accepted criminal complaint affidavit confession of just like incest and child porn and her friend child being raped, 7-year old being raped in her master bedroom with by multiple members of her family, and her husband buying weapons illegally, and then threatening, and then Leilani Hart telling people that she wants to kill her husband. And then we have now the law enforcement saying, are you aware of all the accusations that your wife is making against you? Yes, I'm aware. Like you're a child sex predator. Uh, you know, you're you're buying weapons illegally, all of this stuff, and you're working at VA under IDES, Pablo. You have access to our veterans and our service members' health files and history files, and you sit on the health board? What's going on here? Do you understand what your wife is complaining and saying that you're even having an affair with your coworker? Um, wow, yes, I understand. Well, do you want to press charges? She's saying she wants to kill you. Do you want to press charges? I decline. What's going on here? What is going on here? And he's not calling Kachurga up saying, hey, you better look at my wife's history. Of course she knew. Of course Kachurga knew what she was getting into, because it was just that all over the place, documented all over the place, on Fort Bliss, in El Paso, in Hawaii, and this mental illness, because in February of 2022, James Hart put in his divorce that he wanted his wife mentally evaluated. Okay? And, we called some of these victims up too from these cases, and they're like, yeah, she's crazy. She is so crazy. She is so crazy. She made our life miserable. And, yeah. So, um, wow. So I wanted to explain that. So now I'll answer questions here. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you so much. Was Richard's phone facial recognition? Yeah, I think so. I'm thinking so. But I don't know. My dad bought his phone. Richard said it got stolen. I don't know. I think it was part of the March, because it was the first week of March 2020. And you have to understand that Dallas Hart, Dallas Hart had access to Richard's things. When you're a platoon leader, you have access. You have access. Um, I don't know. I don't know. So many things need to still be looked at. And, like I said, we're not trained investigators. And, oh my gosh, yeah, it's very hard. It is just what they've done. What about Richard's Bitcoin? Yeah, and he had Ethereum or Ethereum. He had more than that, and yeah. So that's big questions too. um, because we have proof of all of that. I'm wondering if the facial recognition photo was used to get into Richard's phone and access his Bitcoin, especially after the rise in Bitcoin prior to Richard's disappearance. Yes. Oh, yeah, there is a lot of questions. Yeah, there's a lot of red flags, right? A lot of red flags. And the biggest red flag that, how much do you need? How many miracles do you need? How much evidence do you need? The red flags are everywhere that they were covering this up. Okay? The cover up is there. And, you know, um, and you have the generals. Something's going on there. Something's going on because General Eisenhower could click heels together. He could make all this right, and he chooses not to. And Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe could make it all right, and he chooses not to. And Donna Martin, the three-star general of uh, IG, right? The Inspector General of the Army, she could do all of this right, and she chooses not to. She chooses not to. Okay? Um, wow. Wow. And where is Major General Clem Coward? Because he was taken down and put into sexual assault, sexual harassment and assault in the military in Washington, D.C. Um, yeah. Wow. They rather cover up the crime and participate in the crime and explode because this is an explosion of more crime. Okay, so many more crimes have been committed because they won't do their duty. All right, that's very clear. But the doing the duty, we are getting institutional help now. That's how we're getting some of this information um, through these um, these law enforcement agencies. So that's very important. Usually, someone keeps their Bitcoin wallet on their phone and may need to do facial recognition to access the Bitcoin. Yeah. And we've thought about the Bitcoin so much, but um, okay, they robbed him. They stole his identity. They absolutely waterboarded him continuously. And they murdered him, y'all. They murdered him. And they covered up the murder. So, I think you have to prioritize. I want my son's remains way before I want his Bitcoin. Not that I want his Bitcoin. I want his remains. And I think that is, I want justice. This is, you just can't put this back in the bottle, right? And service members need to be fought for. They need to be fought for. They're being suicided, y'all. They're being raped. Predators are going after them, trying to groom them. They're racketeering. They're using them for their business plans. They're allowing the barracks to be marketplaces for illegal drugs and creating instances that create PTSD, right? That create suicide. Um, it just no esprit de corps, right? To add on to all of this, and failure after failure after failure, which also adds on to the PTSD. And, it's like we're not even winning. We're not even on the right team. We're not even fighting for a good reason. We're nothing. We are nothing. We're just here to be part of a business plan and to be used and abused and destroyed and groomed and all of that. And I just, sorry, um, this cannot be put back in the bottle. I want my son's remains, and and I want to know what happened, and I want accountability. And you know, um, I don't know what this soldier knows, his circumstances, and I'm talking about the active duty soldier on Fort Bliss that we got word because he was visited by special agents, um, and he admitted that he has some information. Um, I want to tell him um, that the Halliday family and Team Find Richard Halliday, we are full of grace. We are full of grace. And this act of requesting a a congressional inquiry about the young 14-year-old girl living in the barracks being prostituted at night, about the young party girls being given passes by Thomas Kane to come in and be put into danger in so many different ways to party during COVID. Um, and of course, our son's case, and then the JAG not even hearing out soldiers, not even giving soldiers a recourse for fraud, waste, and abuse. Um, for him to be that brave, that is huge. And we are full of grace. And I hope that he gets his time to be a witness. And, you know, All Saints is a great time to do it because All Saints is the celebration of a cloud of witnesses, isn't it? A cloud of witnesses. Um, I'm praying that November 1st, November 2nd, All Souls Day, um, is a cloud of witnesses. And for justice sake, in so many cases, not just Richard's case, but I hope that he's included in this. And I hope this soldier it has something really good. I don't know what he knows. Okay. I don't know what he knows. Um, but I hope that it will, because we have put a fissure. You know, there's been an earthquake, and we have a huge fissure in our son's case now. It's breaking. We've cracked so much, and um, you know, and I don't know how long it's gonna. You know, everything is in God's timing, but we have faith that this is going to crack because we have enough evidence right now for a jury to convict Dallas Hart. We have enough evidence right now for any judge to say, yes, Richard is deceased. Richard is deceased. Okay? And, you know, just an example of that. So weird what's happening. It's been like a delete. Um, what's happening in that is really the criminal database not having anything in there, and of course being corroborated by the Interpol. That's huge. And of course the warrantless search on our home. That's huge. No probable cause affidavit given to us. No warrant. They don't have anything. That's huge. So we have enough. Um, you know, and that if that's not good enough, we have even more. We have more, and I think that you know, just say a prayer. We're getting there. So thank you, everyone. Something happened to my comments, like they got erased or whatever. So, really weird in the live chat. I can't see them. So if you had a question, please repost it. But thank you so much. And I will be back tomorrow, God willing. And every day is new and breaking news. And so, and one day it's all going to crack and we'll get the answers of where Richard is. And I can tell you uh, that 3905 Bliss Avenue and 3705 Bliss Avenue in El Paso, Texas, those are very, very important addresses. Of course, Van Buren, there's two houses on Van Buren, maybe a third. That's very important also. Um, but this Bliss Avenue houses, they're very important. So thank you so much, and we will be back tomorrow.